Moving to our next speakers, I am absolutely delighted and excited that you will have an opportunity to hear some very compelling and powerful stories. If we could advance the slide one more, please, Mark. Wonderful. I would like to introduce two wonderful people to you, Kelly Inslee and Linda Anderson Armitage. We'll start first with Kelly. She is a registered nurse who graduated in 1991, though she looks far too young, and she's wonderful. Her nursing background includes bone marrow transplant, foot care, eating disorders, including comorbid disorders, substance misuse, cardiometabolic nursing, which I must admit I don't well understand, and most currently, cannabinoid nursing. Really exciting, pioneering in nursing. A year ago, she started to investigate cannabis as a therapeutic option for complex chronic diseases and symptoms. She also noticed that cannabis therapy could potentially reduce the burden of polypharmacy, something you've heard mentioned just with Dr. Mitchell's presentation about all these medications that may or may not actually serve the intention that they were used for. After realizing the difficulty in accessing information on cannabis due to bias, stigma, and confounders in much of the research and other sources, she decided to create and found the Canadian Cannabis Nurses Association. Now, for anybody who knows about starting something from nothing, from dirt, from just an idea, a spark, passion, a drive, something that motivates you to take action, well, you would know there are countless hours involved in creating something like this, and probably a lot of times where you shake your head and wonder, what am I doing? It's a lot of work, a lot of work. Well, she's done this and is creating and founding the Canadian Cannabis Nurses Association, a national, incorporated, non-profit nursing organization with a consortium of other associated members, ranging from the public to cannabis experts. She's given talks on cannabis for the public and as well for nursing students at Vancouver Island University. Moving on to Linda Anderson Armitage. She is a registered nurse who currently works in eating disorders, which can include addictions. She's been a nurse for more than 30 years. That's incredible. She's worked in all areas of rural nursing, another incredible area, including emergency. She's also worked in neurosciences and stroke and cardiac research. Please join me in welcoming Kelly and Linda.
Diabetic patient, cardiac patient, renal patient, cancer patient, anorexics, bulimics, schizophrenics, manic depressives, homeless, addicts. Why do we define some people's identity, not all, by their behavior, their disorder, disease, or illness, especially if they have a mental illness or are without a home? As if their identity is fused with the problem. Am I homeful? Roofful? Would you want your only identity to be defined by the state of a roof? And for no one to see who you are, what you love, and what your passions are? Linda and I worked in eating disorders, and we know one of the fundamental struggles for those with eating disorders is to remember who they were before the eating disorder. They can't remember their sense of self. They are merged 24/7. A voice tells them they are weak, less than, a fraud. I argue for some persons, not all, struggling with dependence, it is similar. Who were they before this started? Yet we as a society enforce this enmeshment. We define segments of the population with certain labels. We eliminate the space between a person and the problem. They were not born merged, we merged them. How then can we expect a person to disentangle themselves if we continue to define them by one identifier? We incite shame, we inflict judgment. We apply a non-standardized measuring stick of morality. I argue stigma, oppression, judgment, racism, Western ethnocentricity, and hegemony of evidence-based practice in biomedicine over plant-based medicines hindered access to cannabis as therapy, as well as services to address addiction. Its tentacles stymied our education on the endocannabinoid system and the advancement of science and medicine. Unfortunately, it seems many healthcare professionals can be one of the most stigmatizing groups. But I'm hopeful that this is changing. Healthcare professionals have a lot to lose when we advocate for issues like this. Our academic professional lives are under scrutiny. We risk ostracism and possibly our jobs. I felt it myself. Yet lately, some nurses and others advocating for public members without homes stand on the front lines facing law enforcement. We're supposed to be on the same side. We're supposed to be serving the public together. What's happening? We are treating substance use and addiction as criminal issues rather than health issues. The label criminal addicts, according to Dr. Susan Boyd, was applied by the Division of Narcotics and the RCMP as early as the 1920s, and the term was later adopted by other professionals in Canada. The term was applied to those using illicit drugs, but not alcohol. Semantics are paramount. They form the subtle or not so subtle cue to our collective unconscious. Semantics color our perceptions and actions and justify crimes against humanity. One of the most feared leaders in history wielded propaganda to incite the emotion of disgust, an emotion more dangerous than hatred. With disgust, we dehumanize a population. We view them as vermin, something to get rid of. And we repeat this today. The war on drugs is a crime against humanity. And our vulnerability to addiction and mental health issues began with a colonialist impact on Indigenous people, not only in Canada, but globally, separating people from the elements that form their very identity. We devise policies based on structural and social determinants to health, but it would seem sometimes they're only as good as the paper we write them on. We failed. We are in a state of a public health emergency. We need to treat it as any other disaster, be it fire, flood, earthquake, or hurricane. We are engaged in a war, losing lives, and we're hemorrhaging. Focusing only on drug harms without addressing the underpinnings and the social and political contexts that promote harms, i.e. criminalization, distract us from our responsibility to care for our most vulnerable. It's an easy out. Let the struggle transform us. Let us envision not just an end to this state of public health emergency, but a thriving, healthy population connecting one another with compassion, non-judgment, and with a view to seeing all people as your mother, your brother, your doctor, your baker, a candlestick maker. I couldn't resist. Let's consider the possibility of moving beyond an emergency response to offering cannabis as a harm reduction option, as well as a tool toward health promotion and recovery. I now introduce Linda. Linda lost her daughter in 2015 to a heroin and multi-substance overdose. All overdoses are accidental, and she shares her perspectives today as a mother and as a nurse, but most crucially, as someone who has lived the reality of what is. She has stood where the rubber meets the road, and these are her thoughts.
Thank you, Kelly. On reflecting on the system failure substance dependence terminology, we can look at Leanne's history. Each journey is specific to that person, but gives a window into her life and how it was compounded to the point where she sought solace through drug use to cope with her emotions. These include sexual trauma before age 10, bullying, body image issues, social anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, breach of boundaries and trust by a therapist. And at this point, I'm going to take a moment to thank Dr. Rockaby for taking on that role at the Pandora Clinic for someone who was time-strapped. Our family has always appreciated that. She was also stalked for 7 years. Kelly, another nurse, and myself discussed various labels separating the person from their addiction. We want to honor their authentic self, but also include some key factors in vulnerability to developing drug misuse issues. So we boldly propose today a new and different term. At the very least, a chance in semantics to give pause for thought. Semantics matter. Instead of substance user, misuser, addict, we propose the term system failure substance dependence. We want to separate the person from the disorder. We also reflected on the greatest contributors to substance dependence issues, social and structural determinants of health. This includes failure of social, economic, political, colonial systems and the roles they play in upstream effects, leading to addictions and continued harm. There are emotional components such as treatment for mental health issues, the recognition of spiritual and cultural needs not being met. In addition, there is a physical component including overprescribing of opiates, abrupt cutoffs, discharging into the streets, criminalization, housing issues, and long wait times for access to care.
Linda and I made a number of calls to various points of access for treatment. And we posed as a person seeking help for a heroin addiction. And this is not a critique of these access points, but a glimpse of some possible scenarios that a person may encounter at this present time. Here's a sample. I'm the clinic voice, and Linda is the person seeking help.
Ring, ring.
Hello, Opiate Substitution Clinic. How may I help you?
I'm looking for help. I want to quit heroin today.
Okay, it's a bit of a process to get you into the clinic.
How do I start? I'd like to come right now.
You can come to the clinic to register during opening hours. We're open Monday to Friday, 8 to 4, and we're closed on stats and over Christmas holidays. You have to bring ID. It can be a care card, driver's license, or BC ID.
I don't have any BC ID. I've lost my BC ID.
Can you bring a care card?
I lost that too.
If you don't have ID, you can go to any driver's center for new ID, but that may take some time to get.
What if I don't have any money to pay for the ID?
I'm not sure.
Can I access a social worker to help me get money to pay for my ID?
Well, you have to for you to have access to the social worker, you can have it once you've registered.
So when can I see a doctor?
Well, when you meet the intake worker, you're going to meet her first, or him, and that takes about a day. And then you're going to wait approximately a week to see the doctor.
You mean I have to keep taking heroin until I see a doctor?
This is an example of how our system is failing people who need help post-haste. Evidence indicates that when a person is motivated to change, rapid access is of critical importance.
The next 2 slides are a series of observations gleaned from my experience with Leanne's journey. It is not and will never be medical advice. Leanne took cannabis for a variety of therapeutic reasons, and she took microdose, self-titrated to the lowest effective dose without intoxicating side effects. She used it for decreasing withdrawal symptoms such as nausea, loss of appetite, temperature fluctuations, bowel symptoms, restless legs, and insomnia. She found it helped her mental state and struggles with health issues such as post-traumatic stress, depression, and anxiety. She also used it for chronic pain. She did have arthritis. Leanne also used cannabis as to help with itching, hives, and cystic acne related to Suboxone treatment. She found cannabis helped to reduce the side effects of Suboxone. In addition, she found it helped her focus to complete her aids to daily living and to make her appointments. From our perspectives as a mother and a nurse who journeyed with my daughter, and from Kelly who supported others in their journeys, we share possible considerations and questions derived from being on the ground, so to speak. Number 1, adapt Portugal model of decriminalization all drugs, including heroin for refractory addictions, as they have done in Switzerland. 2, principles of the Canada Health Act must be followed. At present, communication between points of access is fragmented. We desperately need continuity of care. 3, mobile vans to provide on-site care and cannabis substitution if needed. 4, access to 24/7 care as well as a therapist on call for holidays. 5, address trauma and housing issues as in real housing, not just shelters. If prescribing opiates for pain, prescribe in small amounts, monitor the patient, and do frequent follow-ups. For patients in recovery, follow as frequently as you would for any other life-threatening medical condition. Adopt Alberta's primary health network model. Do we dare consider this option? Shall we try cannabis formulations as a first line for chronic pain? We need health professionals to teach drug education in schools using multiple modalities such as facilitating debates to encourage critical thinking. Do not teach them what to think. Teach them how to think.
What is a cannabis nurse? They're every nurse. We are as ubiquitous as the cannabinoid receptors. We strive for your homeostasis of health, and we are the most trusted of all health professions, from my perspective. We are ethics-focused, we build relationships, we are advocates, administrators, researchers, counselors, consultants, and educators. We treat, monitor, and evaluate. We promote holistic care with an eye to prevention. We assess family dynamics, financial barriers, mental health, physical health, spiritual needs, and vulnerabilities to system failure, substance dependence issues. We recognize the value of culturally safe, person-specific care, inclusive of their significant others. We are champions to better health. Let the struggle transform us. Let it ignite a change in all our priorities. These recommendations are achievable, not utopian. We know body and mind conjoin, they are inextricable. Fund access to therapy via psychiatrists and therapists as we do doctor's visits. This would decrease physician workload. Physicians' encounter times leave little margin for psychological support for patients. We must stop applying Band-Aids to wounds that have eroded to the very bones of our country. We pay dearly for this, and the costs are more than if we address the fundamentals from the start. We need more docs, nurses, and scientists to run in politics and spearhead health initiatives and funding. Policies and laws based in evidence promote health. They are not political agendas with promises made for a popular vote, power, or gain. They are not transient. Evidence includes lived experiences. We need to facilitate the inclusion of people who use drugs and examine and repair the systems failing them. Include people who use drugs on boards making drug and health policy decisions. Allow those without a fixed address to vote. Give those without a home a voice. Recognize their worth and show they matter. We must put the welfare of our society first. There will be no economy if we are sick, poor, without a home, food, or water. We will not have an economy if we destroy the planet that we live on. No matter how rich or poor, no one escapes it. So, let our struggles transform us. Let the rise from it define us. And connection to one another be the balm to our suffering and the creator of joy. Let's all meet where the rubber meets the road. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that very profound and insightful presentation. And for all the presenters that have come up so far, it's been such a great amount of information, and also, you know, I think bringing people in touch with really what medical cannabis has the potential for, and how it fits into the bigger picture. So that was terrific. Thank you so much, Kelly and Linda.